Welcome back. Amidst concerns about the reopening of schools while a spike in COVID-19 cases continues, education officials are again reassuring parents and guardians that their children are indeed safe while at school. Nisha Charles reports.
The Ministry of Education continues to come under fire for what the public has deemed an abrupt opening of schools. Since the reopening, a vast number of cases have been recorded, along with news that a resort has also recorded scores of cases. Thursday night, officials came on national television to allay the fears of the public following the news of cases at the resort. According to the chief medical officer, the risks associated with opening schools have been removed.
The social activities like the large assemblies, all of those have been removed, and the school has implemented plans for the various institutions based on the numbers to allow the kids to come back in a safe environment, given the risks that are there.
The Ministry of Education have since reported that for the most part, the reopening of schools have gone smoothly. Permanent Secretary in the Department of Education, Michelle Charles, says this could have only been done with the support of all stakeholders.
While we at the Department of Education work to ensure that we put in place everything necessary to mitigate the risk of transmission within our school setting, we would require all of our stakeholders as well to recognize that they too have as greater responsibility and their efforts are necessary to ensure the success through all of this. We want to reassure our parents and students that the Department of Education is playing its part in ensuring that the environment is safe for their students, for their children, and we would also like to work closely with them and they too recognize that there is a role for them in all of this.
There is a strong likelihood that as cases continue, students will be affected. The Chief Education Officer, Dr. Fiona Philip-Meyer, assures the public that the lines of communication will remain open and that all students will be protected as best as possible.
The basic protocol for us is that when an adult in the same household, a parent, a guardian, is in quarantine or is a confirmed case, the child remains at home as a precautionary measure. And so we want to emphasize that in a big way. We want to remind our general public of their own sense of responsibility, of doing the correct things, being models for our children, but also being responsible in the sharing of information. We note at times, things are forwarded, and sometimes that does more to create panic and to make people anxious. But as responsible adults, we need to check for reliable and relevant information from the confirmed sources.
The Chief Education Officer applauded the students for maintaining the protocols while at school and urged them to continue to do so. Those protocols include wearing a mask, practicing physical distancing, washing hands frequently, sanitizing, and avoiding gatherings. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
The question of obtaining a second PCR test for individuals entering St. Lucia continues to abound as more cases are being reported locally. Of particular concern is that of an increase in positive cases among visitors to the island. Prime Minister Alan Chastanet insists that there is no need to test tourists a second time, as the strict protocols demand that guests remain on property and away from the local population, and their stay on island is less than 14 days.
According to the Prime Minister, in St. Lucia, two sets of protocols are in effect, one which governs tourists on the island and one which governs nationals returning home or those staying longer than 14 days. Chastanet contends that the infamous second test does not apply to tourists as they are not spending more than 7 days on island. The Prime Minister posed this question to the populace.
Are you suggesting, is that what the opposition is suggesting, that persons coming in who are nationals returning home or nationals who are living abroad or persons looking to stay longer, that the policy should be that they pre-test before they come to St. Lucia, and 4 days, up to 4 days before or once they've arrived, we test them, and if they test negative, that we let them out. So statistically, St. Lucia has certainly seen, and the CMOs has been very strong on this position, not to allow persons to be tested earlier than the 14 days and to be let to go out. Because remember, the tourists that are here are not out freely. They're within this bubble.
Shasney says that the two groups of people cannot be placed in the same category and must be dealt with separately.
We have found it impossible to cause those two markets to be put in one policy. And some persons would like to see that. They would like to see that the tourist come, and if you got tested 72 hours before, within 36 hours of being in St. Lucia, you get tested again. If you're negative, you're allowed out. It means you can rent a car, you can go to restaurants, and you can interact with the local population. And certainly, every time that we've approached the CMO to consider reducing the period of time that persons stay in quarantine before they'd be allowed to go out, she's been very strong that the statistics and the evidence that she's received suggest we cannot do that.
The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, says that if ever the country decides to do a second test, it will not change the requirement for quarantining for 14 days. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
On Thursday, during the address to the nation, Deputy Police Commissioner Milton Daisy announced that during the past 3 weeks, 9 people were arrested for breach of protocols and over 300 were let off with warnings. He also explained that the RSLPF had to attend to other matters from breaches of home quarantine to drivers flouting protocols.
During Thursday evening's address to the nation, Deputy Police Commissioner Milton Daisy indicated that the police have been on the ground clamping down on COVID-19 violations. Daisy indicated that bar owners and patrons were dealt with the heavy arm of the law during the festive season, which resulted in properties being closed and individuals charged.
8 persons were arrested and charged for breaching the protocols, be it opening after the time or having persons not complying with the physical distances or wearing masks inside the establishment. So this is one of the areas that we would be targeting going forward.
He also indicated that at least one individual was arrested for not wearing a mask.
Most persons were warned. However, there was an instance in the south of the island where a particular individual was arrested because in that case the person did not just fail to wear a mask but refused to wear a mask after having been told to do so by a police officer, and in that case it was a warden. This person was arrested, taken to court, and was fined $650 for not wearing a mask.
Daisy explained that individuals were caught violating home quarantine and had to be dealt with. According to Daisy, drivers too had to be pulled up.
We also had 2 persons taken from a hotel in the north who were breaching the quarantine. These persons were, upon a report made, these persons were taken into institutional quarantine, government quarantine. So that was done. Also, we had, with the minibus breaches, there were 83 minibus breaches, and these breaches were committed whilst driving.
The Deputy Police Commissioner says one individual was also arrested and charged for advertising and hosting a masquerade event. Members of the public are being reminded that the Royal St. Lucia Police Force will be enforcing all protocols stringently. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Stay with us. There's more news after the break.